virtual audience. Are we streaming already? I do want to let my virtual audience know that we definitely want to make sure that you are involved in this conference. So if you have any questions, please put your questions in the chat room. We have about an additional 150 virtual attendees watching the event today. Today, my two speakers, I have Marc Ashworth. He's the Chief Information Security Officer, Senior VP at First Bank. He is a respected professional with over 25 years experience in cyber and physical security, fraud, IT security architecture, business, department strategy, budgeting, project manager, author, and public speaker. He's a board member of the St. Louis chapter of InfraGuard. Andrew Wilder is a adjunct professor of cybersecurity at WashU, information and security compliance leader with more than 18 years of experience. He believes that IT security needs to offer usable solutions to meet business needs. That, in fact, is a business enabler. As a leader, his philosophy is to ensure the continued development of teams while removing roadblocks. Today, they are going to be speaking on the impact of generative AI on cybersecurity. So let's welcome Marc and Andrew.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm Marc Ashworth. It's nice to be up here again, be on stage. Great crowd, lots of great vendors and stuff here today. So hopefully you're spending time with them. I'm here with my partner Andrew. So go ahead and you want to introduce yourself or?
Okay. As Marc said, great to be here. Make sure that you confirm next year so that we can get enough entrees. This guy right here didn't get his entree. So, all right. I think we're going to talk a little bit about generative AI. You might have heard of ChatGPT. Anybody heard about that? So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how that relates to cybersecurity, some of the kind of scary parts of it and some of the good parts of it. Marc's going to start by taking us through privacy regs, data privacy. So over to you, Marc.
All right, great. Yeah, so before we could start talking about AI, one of the things that is coming up more and more is around the data privacy and what we're doing with that. And so, if we kind of think back, and looking further back, data and how it's being aggregated and everything, it's almost like the old 1800s and the gold mines, or the gold rush. There's so much that everyone's flocking to it. Everyone's trying to get it and get all that data in there. And, the one with the most data is really kind of the goal. And so, why isn't this changing? There we go. So I had a saying that I come up with, data is the manifest destiny of the day. The one with the most accurate data wins, and it really is the case. And if you look at Google, Meta, Amazon, all of those guys, they're gathering so much data and really bringing it in. And now with things like ChatGPT that's scouring the net and pulling in and aggregating all this data, I think it's up to September of 21 now or something like that was last I checked. So all this data is being collected, and so that really kind of gets you around what sort of privacy is there? What are we doing? What's the regulations? It all kind of started with GDPR, which went into effect May 25th of 2018. Which really kind of spearheaded a lot of the privacy regulation. There was some disparate ones, but there wasn't anything major. And the EU really kind of kicked that off and really kind of brought data privacy to the forefront. And then others have kicked in and through other states, other countries, and various other privacy regulations. And as we continue to evolve with this, we will continue to see more and more regulations and more in the states. Each state right now, because there's no federal privacy regulation, or at least nothing of significance, it was continuing to develop their own regulations. And CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, was one of the first big ones in the U.S. that kind of mimicked GDPR in a lot of ways. But it was also tailored towards Silicon Valley, dealing with Facebook and Instagram and all those, and protecting that social media data. So it's already, to some degree, out of date compared to what's happening now over the past 6 months with AI and ChatGPT and how they're doing that. Some of the countries, I think India, I believe it was looking or has banned ChatGPT in their country because of data aggregation, which is kind of funny because they're really doing the same thing that Google's been doing for 20 years, and Bing and all those others. It's just scraping what's publicly out there. But regulation is going to continue, and as things mature and as more and more data is exposed, it's going to continue to provide new regulations that we'll have to be compliant with. Part of this is biometric data. For those that live in Illinois, whether or not you're aware, has probably kind of the flagship biometric data laws out there. So Texas now, I believe, has one, some other privacy regulations as well around biometric, but it's not as restrictive as what Illinois is. And there's plenty of legislation or case law, rather, with the Illinois regulation to back that up. So really be careful if you're doing something with biometric data and collecting that for consumers or even your employees, for that matter. So we have all this data. So what are we really worried about with it? What do we have to worry about with the data, collecting the data, capturing it, and everything? Because there's never any mistakes with it, right? There's never human error that accidentally leaks it. Where there's not any people sending emails or phishing campaigns or anything along that line. Some of these things are external threats, kind of the first 3 or 4 here. But then also on the other side, you have internal threats. You could have internal theft, insider threat. Hopefully you're considering that when you're looking at all your data. But you can have more accidental things, software corruption, hardware failure. All of that can still get you to where you're having to report back maybe to regulators in your state if there's data loss. If you work with any customers or anything in New York has one of the most restrictive reporting rules out there for if there is a breach of data. That's above and beyond California. So you really have to be careful and worry about how the data is being leaked, where you're putting your safeguards and your controls at, and what privacy regulations that are affected you. If you're in multiple states, you have to worry about all those additional states on there. Now, when we get into AI, that's a whole new thing because it's a different aspect. But is it really? Because really, when you look at it, if you're gathering data from an AI perspective, in a lot of ways, it's a giant data warehouse, right? So how are you governing your data warehouse? How are you controlling that data within your environment? And what rules, policies, and procedures are you setting up for that when you do use it? So, we've talked about some of the privacy and regulations and everything, but really, what's the impact of it? So what if you don't do that? What if you don't properly do best practices and do what the due diligence on protecting that data that you have? There could be jail time, could be drop in stock prices, civil lawsuits, all those different areas, whether it's enacted from the government, from some SEC, that'll be a civil lawsuit, which could also bring jail time and everything else. So lots of brand reputation with the leak. There's also some questions now on that brand reputation, on how much the impact is because of a breach nowadays. It's more of a general blip in some cases, but maybe for a small business, it could be detrimental. Your business could have to close because of a breach. You never know. So do you want to take that risk? So when you're talking with your board, when you're talking to your executives about the controls needs to be put in place in order to at least be compliant with the regulations, how are you budgeting for that? And remember, compliance is a baseline at best, right? So just because you're compliant with regulation doesn't mean you're doing industry best practices. So you should be looking above and beyond that and thinking above and beyond that in order to make sure that as new regulations are coming down, they're going to be lagging on what really needs to be done anyway. So keep that in mind as you're having those conversations with your CISO, your CIO, or if you're a CISO, with your CEO and CFO or your board. So have those conversations about here's our regulations, here's what we need to be looking at, and maybe it's something that maybe you're not in a regulated industry. Banking, I can't do anything without being regulated, So, and walking to the bathroom, I got an auditor behind me, so it's bad, sometimes. And so, some industries, though, you might not have that much regulation or scrutiny around there. So, but still look at what your compliance laws, look at what you can do, because out of anything, you might have employee data that you have to worry about, and more likely you do in your HR systems and everything. So keeping that data private, making sure that you're doing the best practices are all key. Now, if you're not following a framework or something like that, you might look at NIST. Let's get a poll here real quick. Who follows NIST for any sort of framework?
Woo. A lot of NIST people out here.
Yeah. How about ISO, or maybe both, or CIS at the minimal? Okay. So different frameworks out there, and whether you adopt that, NIST or something else, or if you're looking for something, check out NIST. They have tons of different guidelines based off of it, and they're all based around the triad here, the CIA triad. And there's other frameworks utilize that. They might add some additional pillars, but they can all kind of roll up to those three. And it's internationally recognized, so if you're if you deal with other countries and that sort of things, and if you're adopting NIST, that a lot of other countries still recognize that to work with. So, so look at that and help that guide you into those best practices. Or whenever you're having those discussions and you're having problems getting funding to protect it's like here's what NIST is saying. This is what the government's saying that we should be doing, and controls that you have in place. And at least it gives you some backing to have that conversation to help protect and provide that privacy around your data. And obviously, if you can work with your lawyers or anything along that line to find out any sort of regulatory requirements that you might need, that's always good. So, Zero Trust has been something, a buzzword that's really kind of, hit the marketing, a lot over the last probably 3 or 4 years, especially. And the government has adopted it. Again, NIST has their own special publication around Zero Trust. But if you utilize some of the basics, which is really, things you should be doing anyway. You should be doing your microsegmentation. You should be doing your MFA and protecting that data overall. But utilizing Zero Trust as an additional layer or framework or a goal strategically, and whether you call it Zero Trust or if you call it, whatever, it's a good stepping stone conversation, because more than likely your CEO's probably heard of Zero Trust through some conversation they have, so at least gets you some credibility whenever you're bringing it up. But having those baselines to be able to work with your IT departments, to be able to work with the business in order to provide those policies that you need to, again, to protect the data. It's all about the data and how that you're working with it. So when we get into the threats and where the data is, being utilized, one of the biggest things out there right now that a lot of companies are really looking at an enterprise level, at a threat, whether it's going to be good or bad, is around AI. And as we move through there and learn more on how to govern within your environment off there, you'll find, there's going to be some good things, there's going to be some bad things. Andrew's going to be talking about a lot of good things that we can do with it. And but as we begin that process, there's going to be more rules and regulations. The government's, having, I think this week or next week, experts coming in, talking to the White House and the Congress about it. So there's a lot of conversation, and ChatGPT really kind of bubbled all this up and really got people thinking a lot more. And, whether you think it's going to be Skynet or if you think it's going to be, what's the guy off of Marvel, the Iron Man's
nemesis?
No. Jarvis.
Thank you.
Thank you. So whether it's Jarvis or
Surprised we
Skynet,
got
which
that
way?
answer from this audience.
As much as I watch Marvel movies, you'd think I remember it. But so whichever path that you think it's going to be, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. And obviously, the criminal actors are always going to find some way to better utilize it, whether it's creating spam emails or malware or whatever it might be. It's going to be used. Everything that's developed is always used for the good and the bad. And if we even try to regulate it through treaties with other countries, call me cynical, but that even with an agreement, the countries are going to be behind the scenes, are going to be developed, trying to be the most advanced AI. I mean, they didn't do that with nuclear or anything, right? Everyone was still trying to do that. So that development will continue, even if there's a halt in treatment or not in development of AI with the treaty. So as we continue with this, and it'll be interesting to watch, both from a security perspective as well as a legal regulatory. So keep your eyes out there. And as we continue on with this and explore ChatGPT and what you do with that in your environment, there's going to be a lot more discussions with it, and hopefully, we can find a good means off of it without it being detrimental either to humanity or even, from a corporate governance side of things. So,
all right, thanks, Mark. Hey, how about a round of applause for Mark? He took a boring topic and made it pretty fun. All right, well, let's talk about the cyber threat impact. So who here has used ChatGPT or is willing to admit that they do? Okay, more than 50%. And how many of you think that your business is using ChatGPT or similar today? Okay, so some people are, all right, that was not what I was expecting. All right, so this article came out yesterday. You can tell this is fresh content. Yesterday, there was an article published saying that there were 100,000 hacked ChatGPT accounts. This is the geographical breakdown. So if you're from India or Pakistan or Brazil, my condolences to you because someone has your access. USA is a little bit further down the list, but one of the things this got me thinking about is, boy, our businesses are putting confidential data into this thing, but regular users are putting, personal data into this as well. If those credentials get into the wrong hands, what could someone find in your ChatGPT history, or what kind of weird questions are you asking it? I don't know. That's up to you. So let's talk a little bit about how generative AI can be used in a negative way, right? How is an attacker's mind thinking about it? So anybody want to tell us what's your number one threat vector today? How are people getting in? Hallucinations? Okay, that's an interesting one. Didn't expect that either. Okay, right here in the blue. Insiders, okay. Anybody else in the back there? Email. Okay, let's go with email. Good one. All right, so I got this from Amazon. Now, admittedly, it was a little while ago. In order to prevent any fraudulent activity, all I need to do is go ahead and click here on this link. Looks pretty legitimate, right? Amazon 2019. If you hover over the thing, it's bit.ly 2xcdhqd. I don't think that's the Amazon website. Now, all of you are trained professionals, but if your grandma got this, or your CEO got this, or your coworker got this, they're probably going to click and go through and give the credentials. Let's see, is there any more here? Oh, IRS claim your tax refund. Shit, my tax refund was only $419.95, but I'm still going to go for it. Let's go ahead and click that and make sure I get that stuff. LastPass. Anybody still using LastPass? Oh, I got an email from LastPass today saying they'll give me 25% off if I come back. No thanks. And then the last one, I love this one. This is Mark Zuckerberg wants to give me $1.5 million. And if you don't know who I am, here's my Wikipedia link, or you can just Google me, Mark Zuckerberg, and you can figure out who I am. So that's great. Okay. Well, when I'm thinking about my number one attack vector being business email compromise, I think about how am I stopping that? All right. Anybody want to say, if you get an email attack, you get a known phishing attack in your environment, what are you doing to clean that up? Any shout outs from the audience here? Delete it? Okay, that's a good one. How do you delete it? First you have to find it in order to delete it, right? So how do you find it? How do you search for it? Any ideas of how we search for it?
Well, we find it from our users. They report it.
Your users report it? Okay. So your users report it, you want to delete it, but how do you know what are the bad emails?
I got an email that said, your paycheck has been delivered to you. Click to click.
Okay, you got an email about your paycheck. I also got that email about my paycheck. But okay, so we know there's some bad emails floating around there. You find that you have one bad email. What do you do? How do you prevent everybody else from getting that bad email? You do some kind of search for it, right? And how would you do that? Anybody, any ideas on how we would do that? Check your email protection over here.
We go on the back end and we do a search.
You do a search. This guy's got the answers over here. I want you to listen to this guy. We do a search, right? So we're going to search for, let's search for the subject line, right? Maybe all of the phishing emails that came in, they have the same subject. That would make it easy, right? We could find everyone with that subject. We could delete it. We could block the payload. That's what we're doing, block by subject. We could search by the sender. Maybe this idiot used the same email box to send all of these phishing emails, right? We could search by sender. Or you could search maybe by the attachment. Maybe it's got a malicious attachment on it. You could find every email that has that attachment. He's saying no up here. No, don't search by the attachment. Or you could look by a malicious URL, right? Maybe all of the emails contain the same malicious URL. How about if I was an attacker and I used ChatGPT, and then I uniquely crafted every single phishing email so that it came from a different address, it had a different subject line, it had a different attachment, so there was no way for you to use your traditional tools to block it and delete it or all the things that we were going to do. So that searching function for us now stops, or you can't use it. So maybe you can find some other ways to categorize it, but that's the challenge there is if I use generative AI, I can craft kind of perfect phishing campaigns. That's the first one. What about malware? So how are you looking for malware in your environment today? Anybody want to guess on this one? Or just tell the truth of how you look for malware today? Sorry?
Hash value.
I didn't hear.
Hash value.
Hash value. Thank you. Sorry for making you shout from the back. Anybody else? We're going to look for hash value. Behavioral analytics. That's a good one. Anything else? Kind of next-gen EDR stuff? Okay. So what would we do to identify and remediate malware today? We'd look for known malicious code. I didn't add hash values to the slide. That was a very good addition. Common malicious actions. Okay, so activity. What if an attacker could then use generative AI to bypass your EDR? Because, by the way, all of the attacker groups, they buy all of the tools that we do, probably illegitimately, but they buy all of them so they can figure out how to bypass them. And then was able to do nasty things in a way that it wouldn't see that, right? And every time it could kind of morph itself or change itself using the generative AI technology to do that. So there is malware, and we saw that other article. That was 15 days ago. Not that up to date, but I'm giving you stuff from June of 2023 at least. All right, so we've talked about that. Let's click a little faster here. You can see my beautiful PowerPoint skills. Let's get Mark back up here. And let's talk a little bit about the benefits. So we've talked about the negative side from the data privacy aspect and the regs. We've talked about the negative side of what attackers can do. But let's kind of turn this conversation around. Let's talk about the benefits. How can you use ChatGPT to benefit yourself? Before we do that, we had a show of hands in the audience. About 50+% are actually using it. Is everybody who's using it, are you using it safely? Like, have you turned off the history on it? Everybody has done that? Not, okay, this guy's raising his hand, but pretty much everybody else didn't raise their hand. All right, let's just go through. This is a take this home exercise, and you can share this with your friends. This is not copyrighted. So in the bottom right-hand corner where it has a picture of you, if you decide to upload a picture or just your name or whatever, you can click this thing. It'll bring up this menu. You go to Settings, okay? And then the next box you can see has two things. This is hard for me to read even, and I'm up here. I don't know what it says. It's General and Data Controls. If you click on that Data Controls, there's a little toggle switch in the upper right-hand corner that says Save the History. Now, when you turn this off, ChatGPT gets mad at you. It doesn't like that you're doing that because that's how it learns, is by the data that you feed it. But you can do that, and then it won't save your history. Now, if someone steals your login, they have less stuff. And you can still ask it questions and do all the same kind of stuff, but it doesn't save that data and it doesn't learn from it. Anybody want to take a picture of this? You can take a picture of this for free. This is we're giving this away today.
Yeah, normally we charge $19.95 for this, but today only you get it for free. So.
That's right. Okay. I think that was, everybody got a picture of that? My clicker's not working so great. So Mark, you want to take this one? What's IBM doing?
So IBM's doing a lot of really cool things, but then they're also pausing their hiring process right now for a lot of positions because they're evaluating where can AI incorporate and save money for the organization, where can they use that to provide efficiencies and potentially reduce job counts. And right now, as it shows here, there's about 7,000 or 7,800, almost 8,000 jobs are on hold while they're evaluating this. And so this is where other companies might be doing this. They might be looking at where can we utilize AI to be more efficient and where we can reduce some overhead off of there from an employee standpoint. Now, on the flip side, what you'll find out, much like robotics, when robotics kicked in, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to lose jobs off of this. Well, those jobs gets retrained and becomes maintenance people for those robotics. So how many of these 7,800 jobs are going to be different job descriptions that's going to be writing the AI now or providing other ways to train the AI or other areas within there. So where one light looks bad, there might be a better light off of it. So.
Yeah, we had a shared goal in one of my former companies called SSAOE, and SSAOE meant Simplify, Standardize, Automate, Offshore, Eliminate. And it wasn't in that order, by the way. It's just those are the 5 things you want to do, and that sounded better to say SSAOE. But this is one of those things, right? So try to reduce repetitive tasks and try to retrain your cybersecurity team to do more value-added activities. I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. So who's using bots in their environment now? Or is anyone using bots in their environment?
A guy in the back there.
Yeah, so just bots. One using like RPA or anything along that line? Okay. All right, yeah.
2, 3. Yeah.
There's a lot
4.
of repetitive tasks that maybe your operations group are doing that they're just entering in data, taking it and putting it into a screen because there's not an API interface or some sort of batch interface. Now, I know in our organization there was a lot of fear whenever we started doing that, but it was like, wait a minute, now I have time to do this, this, and this that we can automate. So it freed up those resources, take those redundant tasks off, and I think you'll see more and more of that with AI as that comes along to help on the operations side in other areas. So much like
you're
the
saying
bots
that
have done.
ChatGPT could actually help me to do my job better?
Well, some people like to say that.
Okay.
Now, as long as you verify your resources, assume it's correct and everything else, because it'll argue with you saying it's correct.
I don't want to get a fine from GDPR.
Yeah.
This is what Google's doing on the positive side of cybersecurity. I'm not going to walk you through the slide. You are all highly educated people who can read, but basically looking at threats. They called the middle one toil. I think that was just because they wanted another T word. And then talent. So some ways that they're using it to help them with breach analytics and other things. But let's dive into that from our perspective, at least what Mark and I came up with, and we'd love to hear from you as well. What are the ways that generative AI can be used for cybersecurity professionals? By the way, I asked ChatGPT this question. I turned my data off. What's that? It's a synopsis of the answer. Okay, we wanted to partner with AI to help us with this. So these are the 6: increased efficiencies, data analytics, communications. I love it for communications. Man, so much bureaucracy in communications, and cybersecurity people are not really great at writing them. Hey, ChatGPT, will you write me communication about everybody needs to patch their iOS device? Okay, great. Policy creation, incident response, security operations center. Mark has kind of teased on that already. Let's go through these 6. You want to do that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So increased efficiencies.
Oop, went back too far. Hold on.
Oh, did I go 2 slides? Okay.
There
Increased
we go.
efficiencies. All right, so we talked before about that SSAOE. One of those is automation. So automating routine tasks is something I have to do all the time. I have to take this data out of CrowdStrike. I have to put it into an Excel sheet, and then I have to massage it and do that. I can have generative AI do that stuff for me. Using it as a knowledge base. So maybe for my team or maybe for the service desk or something like that, I can feed data into it so they can search my policies. There's other stuff that you can do with it. And you don't have to think about ChatGPT specifically when you talk about generative AI. You can have versions of it that are on-premise that you can use, that you can train yourself, so you can use it as a knowledge repository. User training and education. So we're going to have, in October, we're going to have Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Okay, and I don't know about all of you, but at least I am not great at coming up with cool, gimmicky ways to teach people on Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So hey, why not ask generative AI to help me come up with some ideas for that? And then we talked a little bit already about automated threat detection, giving it the ability to look at a bunch of data and see signs and different things from the data that normally would take a human and analysts and time going through data and stuff like that, leveraging it that way. I don't really know exactly how you would do that, but I think it's probably something that some smarter people than me could figure out. Yeah. What else do we got, Mark?
Yeah, and one thing you'll notice, there's a lot of bleed over between each one of these things. And data analysis, since a lot of it really comes down to data analysis. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I love taking a spreadsheet that's got 70,000, 100,000, a million lines and trying to go through and find something that's in there. Does anyone like that with me? All right, okay.
Did you get that from the audit team? Because they sent that one to me.
Yeah, because they always want more and more data and stuff.
Yeah.
But we at the bank, I'm seeing anywhere from 250 to 300 million events a day. And to sit there and efficiently look at that is, or even with built-in rules and everything along that line, it's inefficient. And that is something where AI can do very well, and it could take those that huge amount of data, even from multiple sources and everything, and put that together and analyze it and look for those anomalies and look for things and trends and forecasting. Maybe you're an insurance company and want to forecast trends on storms and how much your damage costs are, or whatever it might be, or maybe patient data or whatever. So that large amount of data from multiple sources, detecting anomalies or trends, those sort of things, AI will do very well, and it has been doing for some time. So
right, like if you think you're not already using it, if you have a SIM today or a SOAR or whatever, that's AI using that data right now.
Yeah, at least at the minimal machine learning, depending on how you want to call it.
Sure.
Or in some cases, it's just rules. But marketing's done a really good job of calling it AI, right? So
yeah. Well, are the vendors still in this room? Because they're calling it AI.
Any vendors in here calling it AI? I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now. But yeah, so.
We can write the policy.
Okay, this guy can write the policy.
Yeah.
See him after class. Right. Even a demo. Okay, what's this one? Communication. I already said I love this one. So translating complex cybersecurity concepts to non-technical stakeholders. Anybody need help with that? Right here. Okay, everybody needs that. All right, we all need that. Every time I go into the boardroom, it's all kind of gibberish that's coming out of my mouth. Security awareness training. Talked about Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but ways to kind of craft individual messages. Maybe you have a KnowBe4 or somebody like that you already like, but then you can take that and kind of customize it for your organization, use your jargon, all that kind of stuff. And the last one that I really like here is language translation. Anybody have users who speak other languages, right? And you got to think about this when you're doing security training or security messaging or anything like that. Generative AI, Generative AI can help you craft those messages in other languages and feed that into your tools so that all of your users can see it in their native language.
Yeah. And you always have like Grammarly and that sort of stuff, which I don't think I could live without, spell check and all the other stuff. So that's always good. So policy creation, so different type of policy that you were talking about, but maybe it's the same type. Maybe you're creating, looking at the data, and you're wanting to find out, what's the most effective traffic routes, and so we need to create new transportation rules or laws around that because of the volume and needing to analyze that in real time. So that data analytics and looking at it and how we might make adjustments to our how we're doing insurance policies or maybe even medical treatment. I mean, AI is showing very effectively that it's taking that and looking for cancer spots, and so they're adjusting the policies that's associated with that and how they're doing it and how they're regulating it and everything else. So there's so much that could be done with just on the fly analyzing that real-time data in your environment, and you don't know how it is. Might be stock prices or stock picks now. That's another one that they're talking about that they're developing. JP Morgan is off of it.
Tried to get it to guess the lottery numbers as well. It didn't do a good job.
Didn't do that, yeah. So, but so many areas where it could be used and built in and help define policies that might be creating new rules in your environment and or guiding you to that. So,
what else? Incident response. I love incident response. It's when we shine, right? There's a big Sev 1 incident going on in your organization. That's when you're at your best. So how about the response plan and playbook development? Anybody like writing incident response playbooks? Are you going to raise your hand? You have your students do it. Okay, that's better.
Yeah, I delegate that myself. So
right. Now you can delegate it to generative AI. Now, I do recommend that you go check it afterwards. Like if you ask it to create a resume for you, you might want to double check that too, because did you know that you got a master's degree from Harvard? I didn't know that I had one, so I had to double check and check all the things that it says. In fact, I've seen it write a term paper, and then it gives, what's the thing at the end, like a
sources.
Bibliography and the sources?
Yep.
The sources all look legitimate, but they're all bullshit.
Yeah.
None of them go to anything real. Yeah. It looks very legitimate.
Yeah. And if you question it, it argues with it, trying to say on why it's valid too. So that's always interesting too.
But one of the best things to have to be prepared for an incident is to have a solid incident response plan, and specifically to have playbooks for types of instances, right? So you have one for a ransomware outbreak, you have business email compromise, whatever you're starting to get, always afterwards to help create one. So it's great helping with that. Doing the initial triage and the assessment. Hey, we've got this thing. Here's the factors that we have. Here's what we think's going on. What do you think's happening? Maybe it gives you another thing to think about, right? Did you check this? Did you try this? And in those things, you're kind of stressed out. Maybe you don't have a great playbook that's up to date. Maybe you can use some help. Investigation guidance, that's what I was talking about. And then post-incident analysis. We all know that the most fun part of incident response is doing that post-incident analysis. Okay, it's not the most fun, but it is really, really important, right? Because how do we plug those holes that allowed those attackers to get in this time, right? So that it doesn't happen again. And then making sure that you're really checking all those things and doing all those things, that it could help you in that area too.
Cool. So before I go to this next slide, how many people here has a SOC? Okay. How many people here has more than 3 people on your SOC? 5? 10? 15? 20? 30? Still have a hand up over here. Very cool. So, well, AI and the SOC could be a lot of fun, I think. There's so much data that the SOC's looking at, and there's so many alerts that's occurring. You get alert fatigue, and to have a better eye and to reduce those false positives and everything, better UEBA and performance, maybe I know my SOC also kind of helps the IT department out looking for, things that's occurring that's not necessarily security events, but, maybe performance events or whatever might happen that's coming in that we see through the SIM. Because I'm kind of greedy. I want everything. I want to see everything. So, I don't care what it is. So just give it to me, give it to my SIM, and then we'll work out the analytics and the dashboards. So as we talked about instant response and automation and triggering those events, so when a certain events happen and having it work through the process, working through your playbook and everything. So a lot of the SIMs and automation techniques, Phantom and those are all doing those sort of things, but maybe not using AI yet, but some of them might be. You might also, we talked about RPA earlier, you might be utilizing RPA, which isn't really AI, but it's getting there. So, there's so many great things that, from a SOC perspective that I could see happening that's not already happening between the analytics that's happening on your, maybe your network detection or in your SIM or EDR or other environments. So.
Good. All right. I know you all have a lot of questions about generative AI and cybersecurity, so let's hear it.
Wow. Okay.
Just released their AI.
We're coming with a mic.
Yes. Oh, we forgot to mention that. You're going to be on the mic, so.
Release their AI requirements.
I believe they did. I don't know all the details
Last
about
week or
it. I was
something?
checking out articles for you on the topics that I had. I didn't check that out, but I believe so. I think I saw that.
Yeah, and they also have some new privacy rules that they're doing, and then of course the UK broke off from the EU, so they're developing all their own and GDPR related. And I'm sure as that matures as well, they're going to be incorporating how AI usage and everything's with it as well. So.
And I think there's people who are trying, or countries that are trying to block it.
Yep.
Right? And you might successfully block ChatGPT. You might. But there's so many flavors of it out there already. You're not going to block Bing, right? I mean, that's a lot of people, I mean, I don't know why, but people still use that as a search engine tool sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe now because it has generative AI. Yeah, let's go over here.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So are you, from your research, a lot of companies are blocking ChatGPT. So would you advise them to embrace it with limitations, or what would your advice be?
Well, I don't mind, and then you chime in. So we're blocking it currently, okay? But, part of it is we're trying to decide on how we're going to govern it. And, how are we going to prevent PII from getting into there? Siemens are one of those companies, I forgot which one it was. They had an engineer had a problem, and he had this great idea, let's toss it in there, and now his intellectual property that they had a patent on is now public domain and no longer has a patent on it anymore. So you have to be really careful what you put in there and how you use it. So I think a lot of companies right now, since ChatGPT has only really hit the forefront, last 3 or 4 months. I mean, it's been out a little bit longer, but really to where it's been really in the news. I think a lot of companies, including ourselves, is just trying to figure out how are we going to govern this, how are we going to handle data loss protection, those sort of areas, and then from there it'll allow to start to come back open. But if you don't embrace AI, you're going to be behind in the organization. So it's a matter of figuring out how you're going to do that. So we have a question over here. Anything else, Andrew, you want to add to that?
I was going to tell a story. It's a story kind of about data protection or about user error or both. So a friend of mine was the CISO at a big mail order catalog company. And they had an incident. Brian Krebs, anybody know Brian Krebs? He's awesome. I follow Brian Krebs like crazy. Brian Krebs publishes this article and he goes, hey, this company, all their administrative passwords are on Pastebin. And so they freak out. The guy gets the phone call. He's in with the CEO and legal team every day and the board of directors. Oh, we have a virtual question? Okay, hang on. We got a couple questions coming in. I'm still telling my story, though, so wrap it up. And then you put it up. Cool. Okay, all right. I'm getting back to my story. So the guy for a week or 2 weeks is dealing with this crazy incident. So one of his engineers comes in after a couple weeks and he goes, I kind of thought Pastebin was like GitHub. So I took this WordPad doc that I had that had all of our administrative passwords and I just put it in there. So that exactly what Mark was saying. I think the key to ChatGPT is like any cloud service is making sure that your PII, your intellectual property, that stuff doesn't get out there. So when I did a memo on it to my company, I said, look, we're not going to block it. You can use it, but just like you would use any other service, don't put confidential data into it. And we'll know that. I don't know that we really would, but we'll try to know that kind of thing. Okay, are we going to do the online question and then go to this gentleman right here? Okay, fair enough. Online question. Is generative AI a common tool that is deployed in the instant response to a threat? What would separate one generative AI engine from another? Oliver.
Budget.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah. I don't know if it's there yet, really. I mean, you have it a little bit in EDR, and really, if you count that true AI versus rule-based or machine learning or whatever, but I don't know if it's truly there fully on the instant response to actually respond. But to help in the detection of the anomalies, I think it's definitely there.
Absolutely. I would agree. So. All right, red shirt.
So they always talk about so many unfilled information security jobs, like close to 1 million.
4 million.
4
3.5 million, 4 million, globally.
Higher, but in 5-10 years, will that million gap that's unfulfilled, will AI pretty much take care of that? All those gaps of there's not enough professionals out there.
So first of all, no one knows the answer to that, right? It's a hypothetical question. My answer is no. Okay, if you think about your kids today, or when we were kids, the jobs that we're going to have in 10 years, 20 years don't exist today, right? So it's the same kind of thing for cybersecurity. What we're going to be doing in 10 years, 20 years doesn't exist today. So will we be able to use generative AI to do some of the stuff we're doing today? Absolutely. Will that eliminate some of those entry-level jobs? Probably. But that will mean people are doing other stuff. Back to my SSAOE, we want to automate non-value-add activities, and giving those to generative AI is a great way to do that. But then you can take your people and train them to do other things, better things that they can't do right now. That's my idea.
Yeah. I say as long as it doesn't detect or figure out the launch codes, then yeah, I think there will still be a lot of jobs still around. I do think that it'll be much like we saw in COVID, because if you think about COVID, there was a lot of frontline worker people, and that got put on hold. During that period of time, they found better ways to make money. They were either delivering for Amazon, they were going back to school, and now because of that, there's problems getting your waiters, waitresses, the staff at Walmart and all those other things, because those people that was doing those jobs went up 1, 2, 3 levels in finding better paying jobs, better higher skills, and those sort of things. That's what I think AI is going to do. It's going to help remove those redundant tasks and allow people to be more creative and figure out things and do things a lot better, just like any other tool. But we're definitely starting to move in a new age from a technology standpoint as this continues to grow and it becomes more efficient and the hardware cost drops that allows it to be better. And NVIDIA stock's going crazy right now. So I don't think AI picked that as one because it was already high. So.
That's right. Yeah. Don't buy when it's already high.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? We got one over here.
What do you think the next technology breakthrough will be to enhance AI's capabilities? Like, I jumped to quantum computers, but is there some other technology between now and quantum computers that may make AI more efficient?
I think it's going to get down to efficiencies around coding. I could see, I know there's some specific languages that's done for AI. I've said for a few years now that there's going to be what I'm calling compact AI, to where it's not taking all these resources to do what it's needing to do. And my version of this, and I think actually it was the last time I keynoted for FutureCon, I believe. I talked about compact AI, where it will be used maliciously because it would, be able to quickly get down into an environment and crawl and do the things that a lot of malware is doing, but more self-sustaining and being able to learn and grow from the environment versus knowing off of base stuff. So I see it becoming more efficient, and that's going to be a technology side from a hardware as well as from a language coding capability that will allow it to be more compact and take less resources, which will allow it to grow more and more.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question. To me, I see it as a kind of leap forward, like the automobile or the internet. Generative AI is a new platform that we're going to learn from and grow from so much. I love that you're into quantum. I think quantum is here. There's an interesting thing about Chinese hackers. Chinese hackers are stealing data that is encrypted that cannot be encrypted unless you have quantum decryption, because they realize that in the future they'll be able to decrypt that, because at some point in the future they'll have quantum computers. So right. I don't know. That's a great question. All right, anybody else? Right here. We have a microphone right here. Right here. Young lady with the black jacket on.
I was just going to say, from my understanding, that quantum is already out there, and a lot of companies are already testing it. But from what I've read and spoken to people, that possibly next year it will be out. So
I haven't heard anything that early, but you know, there's definitely making lots of strides and improvements, you know, on a regular basis off of there. I've heard 4 to 5 years, but still at least 5 years before it's breaking the current crypto standards is what I had heard. Especially if you're looking at 4,096 bytes or bits and higher. That's kind of a little biased, a little bit more time, but you know, there's definitely new crypto standards out there for quantum. That's, you know, being tested and evaluated.
Well, the first one that was released, I think they were able to crack it already.
Yeah,
so.
with like an Intel 8088 or something like that. So it was like
okay.
A really
We've got
small
another we've got another internet question. What are some strategies to use with AI and ML to help improve the function of the UEBA? Mark, I'm going to give that one to you. That sounds like fun.
Oh yeah. So. You know, I think that's where really we're going to be looking at vendors to really provide better solutions off of that. But the data and where we're getting the data and how you're analyzing that and getting a smaller burst, but yet still learning off of you know, previous environments within there. I think there's definitely a lot more improvements around UEBA. I think it's okay at best now, but I think it'll continue to improve as machine learning and AI becomes more efficient, kind of like what I was getting at earlier. So, you know, a lot of people has it, a lot of people's calling it things, and I think it's okay, but there's definitely a lot of improvement I think that could be done to make it more efficient.
Thanks, Jared. That was a challenging question. All right, anybody else in the room want to ask a question to Mark? Or even to me, either one.
All right, we'll stick around for the panel discussion at 4.
That's right.
We'll be there as well as several other great CISOs from the area, and so hopefully you know, come with your questions there, because that makes it a lot more fun when you got lots of questions. So.
And there will probably be drinks.
Yeah.
And there's more swag, so you know, stick around.
Stick around for the prizes and all that sort of thing. So. Be sure to check out the vendors. They're the ones that make this happen and make it possible. So thank you, everyone, for your time today. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, folks.